Hey YouTube, how's everybody doing today? It's been a little while since I've done a tutorial, but I am going to show you guys how you can create a drum loop that's a little bit more interesting than what you're possibly currently writing. I'm going to try not to talk too much throughout this tutorial. I got a bit of a cold, plus it's boring to listen to somebody talk the whole time, so yeah, let's get right into it here. Hopefully you can kind of just follow along as I'm doing stuff, and questions or comments, please feel free to ask. I'm gonna make a kick. What I'm gonna do here is just create like a MIDI track using that kick that we just created, and I'm gonna use the sampler to manipulate it, and that way we can hopefully come up with something that is interesting enough without too much work. Plus, I started doing this recently. If you guys have a better way to do it, let me know, but this way, every time I program a drum using MIDI, you got that zero crossing here, and you can be assured that every time your MIDI clip hits, that initial kick hit is going to be pushing the speakers out. So yeah, I'm going to change the fade in so that transient comes in right away, and maybe what we'll do is shorten up the sample and fade it out a bit. This is kind of the boring part, but anyways. Alright, we can do further processing on this kick later because it's just gonna hold the backbone. Definitely not the best sounding kick, but whatever. We'll work with it. So I am gonna go into my sample pack here, and I don't know, let's find like maybe a closed hat that we like. We can drag that in here. And let's make like a little rack. So first thing that we can do is you can either program these, via the piano roll, or you can play a pattern in with your keyboard, which is something that I like to do a lot because it gives you velocity information, and you're never going to play 100% perfectly in terms of time. So you get a little bit of natural swing that way, and then if your playing sucks, you can quantize it. There's a lot of people who go like, oh, let's just find a groove and throw it in, and so let's try that. Let's just throw the groove on here, and then we can apply it after we mess with the quantized timing, random, and velocity settings. So your velocity is going to affect the velocity of the notes depending on your percentage. Random affects random parameters. Timing is timing, and quantizing affects like all your information is down here. So anyways, so let's do that and apply the groove by hitting this, and now you can see some of the notes have moved a little bit off of the grid, and some of the velocities have changed slightly too, which is a good thing. So rather than having a straight kind of, there's a little bit of variation there. And then let's use the same sample, and let's just change the start point a little bit maybe, and we'll put some ghost notes in, right? So this is the same sample, it's just different. Okay, and then maybe we can change the fade in here and manipulate the fade out a little bit. Maybe we can change the transpose. And that's all well and good. So now we have some ghost notes going on with that same hat, so there's still continuity between the two sounds, but there's some variation. And now maybe what we can do is let's add like an LFO in, and for that ghost hit, I don't know, let's map this to maybe the fade in and change the amount to a little bit less. So now every time this LFO, well, every time we play the beat, that LFO is going to manipulate that sample fade in. And you're going to get a little bit of variation there. And then let's try the fade out too. Maybe let's do a volume automation as well with that same LFO and bring it somewhere we enjoy. So now all of those parameters are constantly evolving, and of course we can go in and change the style of the LFO if we like, in terms of the rate, what type of wave. So let's smooth it and jitter it a little bit, and maybe slow down the rate, or let's increase the rate, why not? And another thing that we can do is map this LFO actually to these hi-hats. Of course, are going to be taking up the higher part of the spectrum, so let's map it to, I don't know, the gain here. And again, we'll have it going up and down slowly, and maybe we can also map it to the frequency and keep that in the higher area of the spectrum. So now we're going to have even more variation in terms of the frequency content that is created every time that these drums hit. And kind of exaggerate it. So that's obviously nothing amazing, but I'm just giving you ideas as to how you can go about creating these types of things. Let's put in a clap. Use this pretty wide stereo image. Program a clap in. So now we have a separate clap here. Again, you can create a drum rack and do this, or whatever you want. You can do like a little pre-clap. Maybe we'll leave it out for one. And maybe what we can do is let's copy this down and create a new clip. Let's put a kick somewhere in here. So now we have a counter kick kind of that's, you know, hitting at a different point, and maybe we don't need the full kick, maybe we can just have it swell. Maybe we'll put it, I don't know, here. Alright, so there's a little bit of variation, and we haven't really done anything other than just use that main kick and kind of manipulate the fade in time as well as the velocity of it. And what else can we do now? Let's add this in here. And maybe we can change the note lengths just a little bit for each of them. And instead of doing like a groove application, we can just manipulate things ourselves quickly. So sliding things off grid. And again, all of this is being done in haste to kind of try to keep the video short. And we can use our drawing tool and maybe change the velocity of these notes just a little bit. Give some swing. And I'm going to quantize just a little bit, 1/16, because that sounded pretty offbeat before. And maybe we can change the stereo image here, because that's pretty wide. And why don't we put an LFO again for some dynamics in terms of the stereo field. And let's map the fade in. Do this, and maybe we can change the parameters once again. Let's copy this down and move these over like so, and maybe we'll remove that. We have some, ghost notes or whatever. Again, that kind of just fill in behind the scenes. And right, so now there's a little bit of variation to something that's would otherwise be fairly boring. So it's a little bit time consuming to do these types of things, but it definitely goes a long way. Right, so I'm just slightly changing each of these clap hits once again in their position and their volume, their velocity. And then maybe what we can do for that clap as well. Or let's do, let's go to the 909s and let's find like a cymbal. And we can layer this kind of on top of the kick. And we'll keep it really quiet. and subtle, and maybe we don't have to do it every single time. Creating a little pattern here. And again, you can use some of the techniques that you've seen so far with all of these different MIDI channels and try and experiment. Sometimes less is more. Maybe we can just put like a little rimshot fill here or something. And for each of these, because now we're working with audio, change the decay a little bit manually for each one, and then maybe change the fade in a bit too. Have it off grid just a little. And we can change the gain. So that it gets louder. So now we have a little kind of turnaround thing, or whatever you want to call it. And for the start of the phrase, why don't we do something like this? Right, so you can see how you're building something from nothing. It's still very boring, and the sound selection's probably not the best, but I think it does a decent enough job of kind of showing you what processes you can go through in order to create some variation within your drum groups. And let's go like that. Actually, let's put like do something like this. So we can use like a loop now if we want. So I will go to this old school drum and bass jungle pack, and we'll find a, I don't know, like a drum and bass break somewhere in here. Why not? Let's do this. Oh, actually, sorry. This is a cool feature in Ableton, actually. So drag it in here, right click, and then click Convert Drums to New MIDI Track. And now what we have is we have all of the, oh, we have the pattern there, sorry. That's cool. You can use that. Definitely you can use that. But you can also do, what is it? I think it's just slice to new MIDI track, maybe? Yeah, and then, so now we have all of that, but it's in MIDI. And you can change the parameters here to get like a sound that's maybe a little more fitting to whatever it is you're doing. And maybe let's pan this to the left. I'm just going to try to find one that'll fit in the right channel. Okay, let's do this. Why not? Audio. We'll do the same thing. Slice to new MIDI. Get rid of this. Pan this right, maybe. We can group these. And of course you can go through and mess with the MIDI patterns here, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. We'll do just a little bit of processing on this group. So now we have the groove of these two breaks working alongside the groove that we've created here. So it's just giving a little bit more variety once again. And maybe at the end here, we can, let's pull the kick out for the last hit, or two hits. Just to kind of emphasize that. And let's group all of our stuff together. And on a volcano, change this to Highpass, bring it down. And for these last bars here, we'll bring the Highpass filter up. And we have this swell kick here, which we've allowed the filter to come back down, which is good. And that'll bring the low frequencies of that swell kick back in while removing the main kick. So it's like we're emphasizing a change fairly simply. And of course, you're going to want to process everything. So what I'll do really quickly is just kind of going to keep the kick and swell kick out. And because I don't want the kick to be triggering the compressor. So this is for glue here, and then like really slow attack and a fast release, so it just kind of pulls everything together. And then I guess what I'll do is turn this off and listen to just the breaks and kind of butcher it and find a spot where the transients still come through. So let's just work with that and compress it the ratio of 4, and then of course bring this threshold way down. I'm doing this really quickly and not listening too intently, so again, take it with a grain of salt, but the practice is there. Maybe we will let the kick take the low end. Actually, you can put that before the compressors. Kick's pretty hot. And then let's add some saturation, I guess. So, I don't know, let's put an Ableton drum bus. It's always kind of fun. So it's given just a little bit of character there, and then let's put some, again, I'm doing this on the entire group right now and not on the individual channels, but you can go through and mess with those as well. And yeah, lots of fun stuff. So let's just send everything to like this room verb, I guess. And why don't we throw this through like a tape saturation too. And I have the kick hitting here now as well, so that's gonna, you know what, I'm gonna take that out and just put it in here. I'm gonna drive this too in conjunction with that drum bus, but again, this is experimentation, and listen and turn one on and then turn the other one off, and vice versa, because sometimes if you're saturating too much you can lose some of the transients and you can make your sound a lot worse, but we're speeding through this, so. That's brighter. And we can go drums. And then of course you can, you know, compress further if you want to blend everything together, and if you want your kick in there as well, that's something to take into account. But yeah, I mean, it's all about, now it's about kind of chopping things out, adding other things in, maybe, you know, embellishing this little roll that we have here by like adding another noise or something, like a little white noise clap or something before that main clap comes to start the loop again. And yeah, so it's definitely a bit of a process, but if you put the time in, you can come up with something that's usable. I mean, we're getting there, right? Like I just blasted through that, and you could almost use that within a track, I think. So experiment, and I hope that some of the techniques I showed you in this video come in handy. Thanks for watching.